Welcome back to The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. Last time, we finally became an adult. 7 years have passed since we pulled out the Master Sword and Ganondorf got the Triforce and ruined the world, although this place doesn't seem to be that bad. In this part, we're going to be making our way up Death Mountain because, believe it or not, the game actually gets kind of non-linear from here on out. I mean, you're still told where to go, and there's still a specific order that the game wants you to do things in, but you don't have to, is what I'm trying to say. We're supposed to go to the Kokiri Forest, but I'm going to be heading up the mountain because there's some cool stuff that we can get. It would also be nice to, visit the Gorons, because it has been 7 years. We don't know what's going on over here. Although, considering the state that the market was in, it's probably not that good. The way the clouds look on Death Mountain actually tells you how the state of the mountain is. So like, since Death Mountain is in a bad time right now, as we're about to see, Goron City is pretty much completely empty save for 2 Gorons. The clouds are all crazy and fiery. The 2 Gorons that I mention are the Goron that's in the shop, and this small Goron who looks exactly like the other Gorons, except they just made his model a lot smaller. He won't stop to talk with you. In fact, if he sees you approaching, as in like he's rolling in the opposite direction that you're walking so you would eventually run into him, he will turn around and try to avoid you like that. The goal is to hit him with a bomb. That'll get him to stop and finally realize that you aren't one of Ganondorf's minions and that you're actually Link. This Goron here says that his name is Link, and also says that his father is Darunia, and that he was named after us because we're such an awesome person. This does bring up the question, though, of how Gorons are meant to reproduce, because this Goron is a child. It's like less than 7 years old, probably, unless Darunia was pregnant the whole time. Are there any female Gorons? Are there only female Gorons? The world will never know. Because we reminded the kid of all the tragedy that's going on around him with the Gorons, we have to kind of cheer him up by asking him about the very things that he's crying about. First is the dragon. Volvagia is the name of it. It's a girl dragon, though you probably couldn't tell by, I don't know, what he says or anything that anyone else says. I'm pretty sure it doesn't say it in the game. But Volvagia is a dragon that was resurrected by Ganondorf to eat the Gorons that he took away. That's pretty much going to be the naming scheme for the rest of the temples in the game. Whatever the name of the element, I guess you could call it, is, and then the word temple stuck right after it. So, Fire Temple. Apparently, Darunia has gone inside the temple to try and save all of the Gorons, but we're the protagonists of the game, and we're the only person that could get anything done anywhere. So the kid decides to give us the Goron Tunic. It's not an item that you have to get right now. You could actually buy it for 200 rupees, so you need the adult's wallet first. And it's pretty useless if you're a child and you try to buy it, because it's an adult's outfit. You can't wear it as a child. And it also, costs too much money where you could just get it for free here. Now that I think about it, though, I don't even think you can buy it. Like, the Goron that runs the shop will say something like, you don't need this right now, or something like that. Pulling out the big statue behind Darunia's throne, I guess you could call it, will allow us to get inside Death Mountain Crater from a different entrance. We need the hookshot in order to cross this bridge here. And what I'm showing off right now is that if you shoot out the hookshot, but you decide you don't want to at that point, or you miss your target because you didn't see the reticle on it, if you press the button a second time, you could call the hookshot back. And Sheik has appeared. There's only like a minute 20 on the clock. We're kind of on fire in here. But Sheik has to spew some symbolic talk to us, and also teach us a song. These are songs of the warping variety, basically doing what the namesake says. They warp you to the entrance of whatever temple they're associated with. They warp you to those hexagonal platforms with the Triforce in them, along with the symbol of whatever the temple is. Kind of spoilery, because we have seen one of those platforms before. Actually, we've seen a couple, but one of them, we didn't know there was a temple there, so it's kind of spoilery, but it doesn't really matter. Also, Sheik is playing a harp and teaching us a song on an ocarina, which shouldn't work, but we've also learned songs from a girl singing and a guy playing this weird music playing item, so I guess I'm not one to talk right now. Also, Sheik, of course, does the same thing that Impa does and decides to teleport out with a Deku Nut. That was some very convenient fire on this probably wooden bridge. Anyway, as I said, we're not going to be going to the temple right now, although we could complete it at this point. All you need is the hookshot to beat it, but we're not going to do that. Instead, I'm going to be doing some alternate progression, as I like to call it. It's pretty much progressing to a different temple without completing the one that we've just kind of unlocked. And the way I like to play the game is that as soon as I set foot in a temple, if I can do it, then I'll finish it. If I don't have the items required to finish it, then I'm not even going to set foot in it because I already know what's required to get into the temples, or rather what's required to beat the temples. To the left was Mido, of course blocking off our entry to some place as he usually does. We're not going to deal with the Kokiri for a little while. First we're going to pay a visit to the Zoras, and for some reason it's snowing. Hyrule isn't really a place with a lot of cold climates, so it's not a natural thing for snow to be occurring right now. Although 7 years have passed, it's still pretty weird though. So we're gonna enter Zora's domain the same way we did before, splitting the waterfall. And we're gonna notice that it's actually quite different from how we remember it. For one thing, there's not gonna be many Zoras around. About the same amount of Zoras as there was Gorons, too. And the whole place is frozen. I think what the game wants you to think is that the Zoras are frozen underneath the ice. And pretty much dead. Just like the King Zora right here. Although he's encased in a special kind of ice. This red ice can be melted. The ice that we're currently walking on cannot. And I think Nintendo made like an April Fool's kind of thing about it, where they were like, oh, you gotta do a bunch of specific things in order to be able to melt the ice. And it turned out to be untrue. You can't melt the ice. At least not in this game. There's a heart piece over there where you have to do a bit of platforming to get to, along with having a lot of icy platforms anyway. I think people think that you can't you can't grab on to the ice platforms, like the ledges are too slippery. I mean, that makes sense. Like, realistically, you shouldn't be able to grab onto the ledges of these. But Link can do it anyway. And usually if you're stepping on one, the ice will kind of tilt. So you can use that to your advantage if you want to get back onto the platform that you were previously on. Kind of waiting for it to go down and then climbing back on like that. We can get into this area that we couldn't get into before as a child. It's the ice cavern. We could get into it because Jabu Jabu was out of the way. Kind of forgot to mention that he isn't here anymore. In the 3D version of the game, I'm not sure if it's in this version, you can kind of do a jump off of the ice on the side where Jabu Jabu used to be, and you can enter Lord Jabu Jabu's dungeon without, having the requirements to do so, which are basically be a child and have him open his mouth. It's kind of neat, I guess. You can't make a lot of progress, at least not at this point, and it doesn't really make sense to do it because you kind of have to beat it in order to get into it as an adult. Unless you're doing some kind of crazy glitched run, which I have said before I'm not doing. This ice cavern, though, is a mini dungeon, and there's a lot of things that will try to kill you in this mini dungeon. For example, those saw blades. If you duck under them by either rolling underneath them or pressing the shield button so that you kind of crouch, just as I'm doing there, you can avoid damage from them. Those silver rupees that were around the room, they add 5 rupees to your total count, but they're also a puzzle element. As you grab them, you'll hear a jingle that will progressively get higher as you collect more of them. And once you've collected all of them, whatever the puzzle is in the room will be done. This room introduces probably my least favorite incarnation of Keese, the Ice Keese, engulfed in a blue flame. If they touch you, you'll be frozen for a little bit, and that's why I don't like them. I don't like being frozen because I feel like it wastes my time. These Freezard enemies here, they take 3 hits, and they are stationary for the most part. Some of them will kind of slide around the room, but their point of origin will be the same. So they'll slide, then kind of blow around and disappear, and warp back to where they were originally. Hitting them is not going to stop them from blowing out their ice, so you want to wait for them to stop, then hit them, and then try to take them out as quickly as possible. A jump attack and then a regular slash ought to do the trick. As for this special blue flame here, I'm emptying all my bottles because you can actually keep it in a bottle. Sadly, this means all my milk, 7-year-old milk, and my 7-year-old fairies that have been trapped inside of those will be gone, but they deserve to be free, except the milk. Once all of your bottles are empty, you can take a swing at the blue fire and keep it inside of the bottle. It's the only thing that is capable of melting the red ice. Also, there's this person in Hyrule Castle Town while you're a child, and they're in Kakariko while you're an adult. They're kind of just sitting on the ground, patting their legs, asking you to sell something to them. And you could sell them stuff that's in bottles, like Pose or milk, things like that. If you try to sell them blue fire, I think they give you 200 rupees, which is a pretty good deal, but it means going way into a dungeon in order to get some fire, and then going way back to Kakariko in order to get some money, when if you played the game the way I did and got that Bunny Hood side quest finished last, as in after you got the Giant's Wallet, you'll pretty much be around 450-500 rupees for the rest of the game. The blue fire is integral to beating this dungeon, so you want to make sure that you have a bunch of it while you go around. Although it is possible to beat the dungeon with only 1 bottle, but it does mean you're going to be kind of backtracking a bit in order to get more blue fire. Actually, that's not true. You don't have to backtrack at all. You just kind of have to go back to the nearest blue flame thing, but there's a bunch of them around. In rooms that they're required, you always have a way to access them. For example, this room right here, we need to open it with the blue fire, and once we go through the door, there'll be a little side room. This room isn't optional. It is optional. There's a Skulltula, and there's Heart Piece, and a compass. The compass is in this room, showing that it is truly a dungeon. You can use Farore's Wind in here, I believe, but I'm not gonna because Farore's Wind is useless. The Skulltula is kind of hidden. It's on a pillar that's... When you enter the room, you're probably not going to see it, but if you have your volume up, you could probably hear it. The compass is also encased in the red ice, so you need to melt it in order to get it. Luckily for us, there's some more blue fire, and it's blocked by regular ice, which you can slash away with your sword. The compass isn't all that useful, especially in this dungeon. That's the reason I'm reiterating it, because this dungeon is pretty short. We're going to be beating it in the course of this part, along with doing a bunch of other stuff afterwards, so... It is completely mandatory, though. You need the item that you get from the dungeon in order to progress with the game. At least, again, just imagine I'm adding if you're not doing a glitched run at the end of every sentence that talks about the way the game was made. Or rather, the way the game is designed. There aren't only ice stalagmites, which are the ones that are on the bottom. There are ice stalactites, which hang onto the top, and sometimes you can hear a noise where they'll kind of shake around a bit, and then they'll fall onto you. If you keep moving, they usually won't, they won't hit you. It's only if you stand still while under them that they'll attack you. Or not attack you, hurt you. The next room is a bit of a puzzle room. It requires blue fire to get into it, and there's a bunch of Ice Keese, the Bane, of my existence. Damn, it freezes you. And the suckiest part about them is that after they freeze you, they don't turn back into regular keys. They keep being ice keys, unlike the fire keys, which after they hit you once, they kind of just turn into regular keys and have to look for another source of fire before they can, you know, become fire keys again. I just want to kill them all to make sure that they're out of the way. And as you can see, there are some more silver rupees. Although in this room, they're a lot harder to obtain. You need to push a block around in order to get to, like, hit these protrusions from the ground. And the way the block works is that it's a piece of ice and the floor is all ice, so there's ice physics, basically meaning that the rock will constantly slide around, or rather the block, not the rock, until it hits the edge of something. So once it hits this wall, it'll stop, and then I could push it over the edge for it to restart. If you push the block over the edge, it'll basically reappear where it was before, like where you entered the room. You should do that because if you leave the room, I think the rupees will reset, so you have to do the puzzle all over again. So it's just simpler to push the block over the ledge, and it'll slowly rise from the ashes. Well, ashes would mean that there's fire around. There's no fire, it's ice. Collecting all the rupees isn't that much of a chore, actually. In terms of the way you need to push the block, usually there are positions where you can get multiple rupees with one push of the block. Or there are just positions where you don't need the block to get a bunch of the rupees. Or to get some other stuff. For example, I'm just going to jump off right here and get to the blue fire, where I'm pretty sure they intended that you push the block in order to get to the blue fire. But, you know, if it's not a glitch and it makes it easier for me or faster for me, I'm going to use it. Our goal now is to get the block to the end of the room so that we can climb up the ledge and leave. You want to make sure that you have blue fire as you leave the room because you'll need it to get into the next room and also to thaw out the Zora King or whatever, but nobody cares about that. There were some rupees hanging in the air. I decided not to get them, but in order to get them, if you find yourself needing some rupees, you need to go up to where the blue fire was and play the Song of Time. If you recall, the Song of Time moved some blue blocks that were in front of where the windmill is in Kakariko, like after we got the hook shot and all. If you play it in certain areas, you can also create blue blocks. And usually the areas are pretty telling about where you need to use it. Like Navi will become green and fly around it, or there's just stuff hanging in the air that you can't reach normally. There's a white Wolfos here, but they're the same way. Well, they're as easy to defeat as regular Wolfos, using the same way. You dodge their attack, and as they spin around for the second swing, you do a jump attack to their tail, and that'll instantly kill them. Although it's weird because white Wolfos, I'm pretty sure, occur more than the regular Wolfos, but the regular ones are the ones that are just called Wolfos, you know? Like they're the rarer ones, but they're not the ones that have a name that would be associated with a rare species, like special Wolfos. They're just regular Wolfos. Anyway, Sheik is back and trying to teach us a song. He tells us that there's one Zora that managed to escape. That Zora, being Princess Ruto, Sheik kind of saved her. There's a couple more Zoras that are quote-unquote escaped, those being the king and the shopkeeper, but we do have to thaw them out first before they're truly free. Sheik will teach us a song again after giving us this symbolic speech again, and this song is actually one that I really like in the game. It's probably my favorite of the Warp songs, the Serenade of Water, and I just think it's a very calming song. And it's not that hard to play either. It's the shortest of all the songs. It's only 5 notes long. And as you saw before, Bolero of Fire is the longest. It was 8 notes long. Although it was kind of a march song where lots of the notes repeated. So it wasn't that hard of a song. I can't believe that I'm only getting to this now, but of course the ocarina songs that are used for warping have 3 different parts to them. It's usually song type of element type. So the Serenade of Water is, for getting to the water temple, and a serenade is usually a song that's played for like someone's lover or something like that, which is a pretty fitting situation considering that Princess Ruto has a massive crush on us and wants to marry us, as shown by giving the Zora Sapphire, which is, again, the Zora's engagement ring. The item we got from that treasure chest was the iron boots, and this is something that was massively improved upon in the 3D version. When you use the iron boots, you have to go into the menu, equip the iron boots, and then if you want to take them off, you have to go back into the menu again. In pretty much every game that contains the iron boots after this one, rather than being an equipment item, like you have to go to the equip screen to use it, you can set it as one of your C items or whatever equivalent there is in that game. So you could just kind of flick them on and off like a switch rather than having to go into the menu and pick something different. There's a heart piece underneath this lake, or fountain as they call it. You need the iron boots in order to get to it. And of course, Link can't breathe underneath water, so a timer is going to appear. The timer, interestingly enough, is based off of how many hearts you have left. If you remember, the timer was the same when we stepped into Death Mountain Crater with this same amount of hearts. And when we were a child, the timer was a bit different. It was a lot less than what it is right now. It was about like 40 seconds, whereas here we have just about a minute 30. If you want to get out of the water really quickly, you want to go up to this wall and start swimming up it, because the way the slope is, it kind of makes it so that you rise faster, kind of like you're going up the slope and going up naturally with the water at the same time, so it makes you go up faster. These enemies are blue Tektites. They don't look very different from red ones, obviously, and their health is only a little bit more than red ones. I think they take 3 hits rather than 2, hits being, I guess, the unit of measurement for 1 Kokiri sword swing. So instead of taking 2 Kokiri sword swings, they take 3, or 2 swings of the Master Sword, or a jump attack from the Master Sword. Now we can finally save King Zora. You need to take the blue fire out of the dungeon in order to thaw out King Zora. If you think the dungeon is just for getting the iron boots, you'd be wrong, and you need to go back inside of the dungeon in order to get more blue fire, in order to thaw him out. The item that he's going to give us for thawing him out isn't, like, it's not the only way you can get the item. You could also, again, buy it from a shop. It's the Zora Tunic. It's blue, which is awesome, but it's also the only item that requires that you have the Giant's Wallet in order to buy it. It costs 300 rupees to buy, and again, you get it for free here. But, I didn't talk about this before, there are ways for you to lose your tunics, along with losing any perishable shield, so the Deku Shield and the Hylian Shield. So, if you do end up losing the Zora Tunic, you're not going to be able to get it back unless you find 30 gold Skulltulas, and then get the Giant's Wallet, and then grind up rupees so that you may obtain the tunic by buying it. With that done, we have everything that's required to enter the water temple, but we don't have what's required to beat it, so we're not going to be doing that. Instead, we're going to be going back to the Lost Woods because, well, we can make dungeon progression there, and also we can make some side quest progression. First, what I'm going to do is I'm going to exit from the wrong exit and visit the Kokiri Forest, which is full of enemies now. Although you can't really see it, but that was a Deku Scrub right there. The Skull Kid that was here is gone, but normally he isn't. The reason why is because we've made progress in our side quest, and we can finally tell this girl's brother about Koshiro. How do I know that this is her brother? Because I've played the game before. There really isn't any indication that he is. Although, if you talk to him without having Koshiro, something different will happen. It'll say like he's sleeping or something like that. And of course cuckoos are used to wake people up, but the girl said that you can't wake just anyone up with this cuckoo because Kohiro only works for nice people, according to this guy. And we're a nice person. At least, I like to think that we are. Or that I am. Anyway, he gives us a mushroom. And the purpose of this is to take it to the potion shop in Kakariko. The problem is that we have a time limit. We have to get there fast, and the fastest way to do so would be probably warping to Death Mountain with the Bolero of Fire. The thing is, if you warp while there's a timer, you're not gonna make it. Like, once you've warped, it'll say something like, you took too long, go back and get some more. So, what you're actually gonna want to do is ride Epona to here. I don't think just rolling around will take up enough time. I mean, will give you enough time, rather. And the reason why my timer is so low is because the way that I did this was I actually came at night. And I tried to jump off from that ledge over there, like where you take the cuckoo to jump across if you did the cuckoo side quest. And that apparently didn't work. I grabbed onto the ledge, but I kept on falling off for some reason. If you try to take out the mushroom without talking to her first, you'll just kind of hold it up into the air for no reason. But if you talk to her, she'll say that she smells something funny on you. And then if you show her the mushroom, then it'll actually trigger the correct cutscene and you can tell her to make something with the mushroom. It'll make a potion for that guy, and we have to take it back to him. Good thing there isn't a time limit on this. We could just do whatever in the meantime, but I am going to be going back to him immediately. I don't know why he wants a potion. Lots of the stuff in this side quest kind of seems happenstance, I guess. Like, it shouldn't be this way. There's nothing to tell you that this is this way. Either way, I'm blue now. I switched out to the Zora tunic in the meantime because, I don't know, I just like the color blue. And also it matches the Hylian shield, even though the green is more iconic. We have to give the potion to this girl who is now in the guy's place. And apparently she wants it because, I don't know, it was made from the mushrooms, so we gotta return the mushrooms. And she's saying that the guy probably turned into a Stalfos, which is true of adults. If an adult gets lost in the forest, they become Stalfos. If a child becomes lost in the forest, according to the Navi dialogue when you talk to, or not when you talk to, when you lock onto a Skull Kid, it says that children will turn into Skull Kids. That Poacher's Saw is important to a glitch that happens in the game, a very not good one, because if you get it, by the time you go back to being a child and then show the Mask of Truth to the people at the forest stage, so the place where you showed the skull mask before, and get the Deku Stick upgrade so you can hold more Deku Sticks, if you try to show it to them, it won't work. Like, they'll either give you rupees or try to attack you or something like that. And that kind of sucks. In the 3D version, they do fix it, so you'll actually get the Deku Nut upgrade. But sadly, I forgot, and I've already progressed way too much in my recording. It would take a lot for me to go back and then kind of re-record a lot of the stuff. And also try to re-record it as precisely, you know, like this as it was before. So I decided I'm just gonna kind of skip it. Although I did show it at the end of last part. I did show like what happens when you actually show the Mask of Truth and get the proper upgrade. We're back in the Sacred Forest Meadow, and in this area there's a bunch of moblins. At least, I think they're supposed to be moblins. They don't really look like them. The way they attack in this game is that if they see you, they'll sort of try to ram at you. What you want to do is you want to hit them with the hook shot, because they're counted as one of the weak enemies that can die from a hit from the hook shot. Although there are some enemies that don't die from just one hit, like the Freezards in the Ice Cavern. They die from 3 hits of the hook shot, and also bring you to them. The hook shot will bring you to them if you hit them and it doesn't kill them. It's not too terribly difficult to get past this area. Navi tells you that you should Z-target to try to see around corners and such. And killing these guys isn't that much of a hassle, because it's a lot, I don't know, I wouldn't say it's easier than sneaking around Hyrule Castle, but it's a lot more... You could take a lot more risks, I suppose. Like, getting hit by one of the guys doesn't really do much. It just kind of hurts you and drives you to the end of whatever path you're on. And, you know, you don't have to restart, which is pretty much the best thing about it. The water here, if you get rammed into the water, you won't be able to immediately come back from it. Like, if that guy saw me and rammed me into the water, I would be stuck in the water for quite a while, because you kind of have to stay there before, or until rather, he walks away, because if he sees you just kind of coming up, like going up the ledge, he'll still ram into you and then drive you back into the water. This giant moblin that appears in all the promotional videos for Ocarina of Time, he will send out shockwaves with his big ball on the end of a stick thing. And if those shockwaves hit you, they'll basically drive you all the way back to those stairs at the beginning. And that kind of sucks. But it's pretty easy to get around. You can either L-target and walk slowly towards him and sidestep whenever one of those comes up, or you can just kind of meander around, like walk in a zigzag pattern. And you could kill him with the sword if you do a couple of jump attacks. That guy was subject to a lot of testing when it came to me playing this game, because like I would kind of use him to see what attacks did however much damage and stuff like that. Sheik once again appears and teaches us a song after giving us a motivational speech. The Minuet of the Forest allows us to teleport, of course, to the forest. A minuet is a triple-time two-person ballroom dance song, and a bolero is a Spanish, like, triple-time song. I forgot to say that when we actually got the song, but whatever. Usually near these platforms there's fairy fountains and gossip stones, and if you play songs near gossip stones you'll be able to get fairies out of them. So there's easy ways to get fairies around dungeons, because those stones are usually at the entrances of whatever dungeons you're at. So if you use the song inside of a dungeon, you can actually warp right out. And all this talk about dungeons is really getting me ready to go to the next dungeon. And that's what we're gonna do on the next part of The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time.